Okay, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm about to show you how I make my necromancer tank. Well, I chose North because it's their tankish type, and this is a female. I'm going to show you how I play as a tank. Gotta get tank skills though.
Has got you inside. Everybody knows. Everybody screams. There's too many scouts on our team.
It's not but I can fool your head. The personal might digging up your dead. I am the spy. You is my nest. Don't turn your back on the damn your nest.
This is the Fortress 2. This is the Fortress 2. TF2. In this game, if you're new, we'll hate you. Fortress 2.
In this game, we're all loving it. Everybody's waiting
as good a place as any. Now, prepare yourself. Shall I conjure up a dance?
Conga line a potion now and how we will be.
Let's begin.
Now that's no fun.
Attack.
Get one twice risk on the road, but if you know what's good for you, you will run. Demo this, open. Now this.
Ready yourself. Quick, what will it your balance?
Look at my gun.
That's the way. Well done. Protect yourself. Use your heaviest attack. Prostrate that. Block it stop. Strike hard now. Now
Twice risk on the road. In this game.
Quickly, break free.
Everybody's waiting for it.
Again, make ready. Prepare yourself. Now press your advantage with a heavy attack. Swiftly now. Interrupt it.
Now that's no fun.
Again, hold it together. When you're enemy,
If you know what's good for you, you will run. Demo this, open. Now this.
Well done. Come speak with me for a moment.
Look at my gun. Now it's time for killing fun. I am Zidane, healing to his my beam. I am an engineer, erecting a sentry, dispensing bullets, teleport for plants.
This is the Fortress 2. This is the Fortress 2. TF2.
With moves like that, the damage rate is 100%. Yes, I'd say we're ready to start.
Design you. In this game, don't you really love it now? Everybody's waiting for.
Fortress 2. This is the Fortress 2. Heavy sandwich in the dead of night. This is the Fortress 2. I will gonna spy check you. Red team sniper has got you in sight. Everybody knows. Everybody screams. There's too many scouts on our team.
It's not but I can fool your head. Nothing personal might digging up your dead. I am the spy. You is my nest. Don't turn your back on the damn your nest.
This is the Fortress 2. This is the Fortress 2. TF2. In this game, if you're new, we'll hate you in Fortress 2.
In this game, we're all loving it. Everybody's waiting for the next update.
Round the corner, demo man, dressed up as a
Demo man?
Conga line a potion now and how you'll be ready to your team. This is TF2.
Are you okay? Well, that's no fun. I get twice risk on the road, but if you know what's good for you, you will run. Demo this, open. Now it's you.
In this game, multi-quarters.
I am heavy weapons. Look at my gun. Now it's time for killing fun. I am Zidane, healing to his my beam. I am an engineer, erecting a sentry, dispensing bullets, teleport for plants.
This is the Fortress 2. This is the Fortress 2. TF2. Robots spawning everywhere. Spies are not allowed because we don't care.
It's Barcha, design you. In this game, don't you really love it now? Everybody's waiting for the next update.
Halloween update will usually turn up late and dump lots of items to make you
a stray golem. I want to sneak past it.
Don't you want to have this tool?
Armonomical, destroy them all! Save himself, Gideon! Run! Gravity, run! I am so victorious! Goodbye! Come on out, Erasmus. On your body! Not burned. Looks pretty good. I might crawl in there myself.
Go mine. Grab the keys and go. Where to first? That's how easy it is to borrow a car with a veil.
You're a champion. You got this.
With low daily rates, no hidden fees, and locations throughout the city. A veil takes the hassles out of renting a car, so you can focus on the journey ahead. And wherever you're headed, drive easy knowing your ride is protected by Allstate. So try a veil. It's the easy way to get away.
Who is she? What is she?
She is Razaka.
Release to Razaka, herald strange day.
Excuse me.
Have you found Bryce?
No, sir, not yet. I believe I have found the perfect recruit for our organization.
Not this again.
Sir, need I remind you that we're still one agent short ever since the death of...
I don't want to hear it. Leave.
Ah, you're right. It's really only just one guy who single-handedly took on the Cobra Gang. There's nothing to it, really. Just say myself out.
Yeah, and you're going to tell me he's your friend to tell the tale too? Come on now, you can't be serious. One man against the... Oh, you rascal. Come on then, show it here.
Popped out of nowhere a few weeks ago. Began going after various criminals, bank robbers, murderers, you name it. Yesterday was his most ambitious hit yet. The Cobra Gang were to meet with a local street gang called the Yellows. They were planning to exchange a mysterious weapon case for a large sum of cash.
We have nothing with this guy.
Precisely. Whoever he is, he's a real ghost. No one has no associates, no names. All we know is that he calls himself White Spy.
Hello everyone, I gotta talk to a friend real quick.
Almost there. Let's hurry. Right. The entrance to the Key Rides Gallery should be east of here. Let's set out.
Hey Joe, I'm going to talk to you right now. You get this message called, okay? Bye.
The Keyrights gallery is in here. Let's head inside. Well, this is upsetting. Jeffersburg. Giant clock. Do you see that vault to the south? The sky shard is there. There it is! The sky shard! Move! Now! Dodge quickly! To the side! What? Did you just absorb the energy of that shard? Incredible. Not quite what I intended, but we can work with this. Let's head back to the gate.
Okay, everyone, I'm back. I'm still playing, but I'm waiting for a phone call from my friend still.
As an Audible member, you get 1 credit every month to use on any title across their entire premium selection, but clearly, credits always best spent on those longer, 9-hour plus premium audiobooks. This month's pick was an easy one for me. We delve into the more darkened corners of Imperial life. The horrors
Now, we're going to be doing a tank.
Imperium, from the vast
Most tanks,
spaced out into
necromancers,
the depths of
will be
High
focused,
Cities.
but I'm going to be
So,
focusing
Warhammer Crime is the best
on
place to
armor,
find
heavy
reality
armory,
for those ordinary
my
humans in the Imperium.
weapon
So,
choice,
2 choices,
because I
Flesh
do
and
want to
Steel
get that
and the
wall
Voice
of
of
shield.
Conspiracy. I'll be telling you
The
all
shield
about
wall
these
is
at the
going to
end
be
of the video
perfect
today. You can
to
start
protect
using
my
Audible
allies.
today with a free 30-day Audible trial to get yourself full access to thousands of audiobooks, originals,
And
podcasts.
then we're going
All
with
you
Bone
need to do is
Tyrant.
visit audible.com/Luton. And for those in the US, you can also text Luton to 500 500.
Bitter Harvest, Bone Tolerant, and, well, we're going to have Depth Sight and Bone Armor until we get the Fire Kill skill.
Again, there it is! Send it back to oblivion!
Wither and die.
One of the things that I enjoy continuing to First Millennium and Tortured Souls inhabited is the disconnection between the realities presented to
You cannot kill what cannot
and the reality
die.
of those who exist within it. We've often noted that 40K bleak, dark,
Only I will
initial
remain.
civilization. This is established. There is some less established virtual many. The galaxy of M41 is largely presented to us through the eyes of the Imperium. All the while, material is fiction. This is why record material like technology, Imperial armor is written almost in a report format. So it's not objective.
You did it!
And very often this leads
Hopefully
to
the
us
gallery
building a
wasn't too
fairly
badly
biased or
damaged.
distorted
Follow me.
reality. It's not uncommon for us to have learned characters who turn out to be far less than they were portrayed to be due to Imperial propaganda, which is very interesting because if the law were written objectively and in a disconnected way, we wouldn't see instances like that would be presented differently to us, like a murder mystery movie where the audience know who the murderer is. We enjoy watching the detectives solve the murder through their skill and pragmatism.
By all the stars!
40K
Look
is
at the central column.
mystery where
I
the
had
detective
no
is
idea it was
pulled down
concealing
20
something like
years
this.
of bleak reality.
Let's get a closer
He's
look.
lost the will to try and understand the crimes they document. He's given up hope of making any kind of difference and accepts things for what they are. And when finally a case comes along that catches interest, it turns out to be far more horrific than originally intended. The outcome is grey and unsatisfactory, and we, the audience, only ever know as much as the protagonists themselves. For some people, this is incredibly irritating. Some like their narratives to be all tied up, squared away, slotted into neat boxes with the proper labels, and then all placed into a bigger box that states the overall core category for its contents. And I can appreciate that, but this is not for me. I'm one of those people who really enjoys ambiguity. I like it when details are left out deliberately and endings are unclear. It gives room for your own imagination and speculation. In that same vein, I enjoy that the reality we see for humanity in the Imperium is unclear. To give a recent example, it's like the citizenry for Tertium in Dark Tide. For centuries, they never sent their best out to fight the good fight in the name of the Emperor. To the wars beyond their daily grind, reports were infrequent, but always they were told of these fantastical achievements and the glorious regiments out on the fringe realm of their system. But the reality was, of course, far from this true. And it came back to not just haunt them,
This
but
is the
potentially
Key
break
Rights
down
Gallery.
their entire world and
Not so
system.
remember it.
And then, of course, when the Inquisitor arrives, they themselves don't even know necessarily the specifics of what is happening. And in 40K, this is what I
Now
very
I
much
see
enjoy
why
to
we
see,
never
is
managed
this
to unlock the
disparity
gates.
between
That
the
power comes from
self-assured
this arcane
arrogance, which is
heat
how the
and
Imperium
basic.
presents itself, stacked
With the
against the
helix
depths of
exposed,
despair
these gates
on a
can
sliding
finally
scale from
reopen.
the immediate levels
Perhaps
of
not
its
all of them
vast
at
type cities,
first,
down
but
to
enough
those
to
who are
reach most of
condemned to
Tamriel.
languishing in
The
eternal
question for
despair,
you, I
the
suppose,
anonymous
is
masses,
where to first?
Imperial citizens who have never known anything other than a life
Can
of
you
hardship, toil,
the
and
Key
suffering.
Rights
The
Gallery.
dark humour
So,
of the Imperium in
probably
M41
not.
is of course quite blunt, in that for all the Xenos horrors of the galaxy, for all the nightmarish aliens and the ever-present threat of corruption, humanity remains its own worst enemy. So much so that for all of its fringe border wars which never end, there is an equally vicious, unending war within its own walls. Discontent, traitors, renegades, heretics, uprisings, and simply those who, in their own anguish and despair, will open their souls to the darkest whisperings which bleed into our reality from the mirror realm adjacent to our own. As always, it's worth remembering that for those who live in the Imperium, the phrase jobs is relatively inaccurate. Most citizens' lives are dictated to them, and their work assignments are not what we would envisage as jobs. The Imperium, though, is vast, spread all throughout the galaxy, and dependent on the world you find yourself upon, the system it lies within, and the proximate distance from the more tightly controlled sectors of the Imperium, you may find more or less leeway when it comes to personal choice. Realms such as Ultramar enable a considerably broader range of independence for the citizenry than is commonplace elsewhere in the Imperium. As we've noted also before now, within the Imperium, there's no standardized currency system. To do so would be challenging, if not impossible, given the distance, scale, and instability of the Imperium as a whole. And while hive worlds may use localized forms of value, an endless list of ambiguously titled credit systems and guild-approved coinage, feudal planets, often seen to still operate on a more basic barter system, supplemented with some perhaps rudimentary coinage issued by nobility. But there does exist some broader use of value used by those who travel by the galaxy. Visitors, road traders, and the like use one of these known as the Throne of Geld. And this is as close to being a universal payment as exists. It's necessary so that they may pay for materials and services between one another and the systems they encounter. But how specifically this functions is unclear. For most humans, they will never leave the world they were born upon. For many, they will never see the light of day even outside of their hive cities. And for any who do, it will likely be due to some indentured servitude, a soldier, a voidsman, agri-workers, and so on. Humans, in the eyes of the Imperial bureaucracy, are little more than currency. They're numbers on a data slate. They are the raw flesh matter material of the Imperium. Individuals are unimportant both in the grand scale, and you are as much of a raw material asset to the Imperium as is all agri-produce, manufactured goods, ammunition, and other consumables. So let us return to the true horror of 40k. The life of those ordinary humans, or those living a life consumed by servitude to the Emperor. The lowly privileged, the necessarily skilled, the inescapable drudgery, the lack of hope. The acceptance of life so tortured and insignificant that many welcome death when it comes, while many more are left with minds unable to cope with the reality. All the while the Imperium directs its arrogance and fury outwardly to the Xenos and the heretic, but it is humanity itself which is as much to blame for the extreme levels of suffering inflicted upon the trillions of ordinary citizens across the entire galaxy.
I'm short on.
And those who would seek its destruction. If you yourself stood upon the streets of a hive world, in a forge world, a feudal world in M41, how would you serve? What role would you see yourself in to survive? As always, if you have a worse 40k job in mind, throw it in the comments. Heads up, nothing related to sewerage and cleaning of things. We've heard it a billion times, and I covered it in video 1. We got it. Bad smelling things were unpleasant. If anybody can think of some truly creative, even perhaps speculative examples, it may make it into the next part of the series. So then, back we go into the horror. Recently, we discussed the region of space known as the Coronis Expanse. Far out on the edge of Imperial space, near the center of this region, sits a giant red star known as SR651. No one knows whether this system was originally inhabited or if it ever had really any other major planets, but now all that stands there is SR651 and a vast ocean around it of dense asteroid fields. Scattered throughout these fields are the shattered, broken remains of void ships and fleets. Due to warp storms, it appears that periodically strange magnetic anomalies pull and sift the wreckage, so they collect in these massive graveyards of Imperial ships. Much like a river eddy, the Imperial materials gather in these swirling void pools, and over time, this has now created ship graveyards that are thousands of kilometers in dimension. Given the isolation of the Coronis Expanse and the fact that the system containing SR651 lies not far from a major trade route, the needs to repair and improve star vessels, combined with its proximity to a busy shipping lane, gave rise to what will become a vast breaker yard. Now you might imagine that within the Imperium, ship-breaking yards would be quite a well-established and a common thing, but actually not so much, because it is in fact quite rare that ships are deliberately mothballed, scrapped and broken. And this is because of the vast amount of time and resources that go into the construction of any Imperial starship. It's worth to remember that the way the Imperium and the Mechanicus view hardware is not the same as we do in our time. Ships and material used by the Imperial faction or hierarchy are not something that will last 10, 20 years and then be scrapped. A significant amount of Imperial hardware will last centuries, millennia, or longer. Plus, there are many Imperial starship variants that they do not know how to build any longer, which means they must keep them in service as long as they can. So the only time you may see some small, localized breaking operations will be at the site of, say, vast space battles and the ships which become broken, dead fields of Imperial technology, thus representing decades of construction filled with priceless, very often highly classified technology. Such operations would likely only occur under strict supervision, especially dependent on the origin of those involved. We might imagine Inquisitors, certainly Mechanicus, perhaps others, would oversee these operations. But out on the fringes of the galaxy, such factional representatives are far less present. It's more common that far smaller numbers of ships are lost out in the void or the warp, lost through battle, disaster, structural stresses, and as a result, some ships do just become untenable. But they're often abandoned, and approaching a ship for individual salvage has its own risks. Towing it to a world is very, very risky because lost, dead, and broken ships are often a calling card of Chaos, Xenos Corsairs, and the Tyranid Genestealer, or just other weird circumstances that are very dangerous.
Guest.
So again, unless there's a good reason to do so, dead ships that are adrift may well be left alone unless there's a specific reason for getting involved, especially if you were just a regular Imperial Navy vessel, not a well-equipped Astartes or Mechanicus salvage ship. So for these reasons and other, huge ship-breaking yards are not a common feature of the Imperium. They do exist, but it's not a regular industry, because by and large ships that are put out of service are either too damaged, too dangerous, or too difficult to recover. So an actual ship-breaking yard is as potentially bountiful as it is unusual. And this one was reportedly founded by an enterprising rogue trader, Iridas Holder, the scion of a powerful family from the Calixus sector that was heavily invested in both shipyards and the salvage trade. After being battered into the SR-651 system by warp storms, Holden immediately sought a sheltered anchorage for the wounded ship, and while the crew and tech priests were busy with repairs, Holden took the opportunity to survey the system. He scanned everything within reach of his all-spectrum rays and sent parties to search further afield. One of these discovered an independent salvage operation aboard an old station anchored close to the system's center. The Voidsman agreed to return and meet with rogue trader Holden. After considerable discussions about the nature of the salvage operation in the system, it was revealed that over time, this system had become well known for its bountiful salvage prospects, and so numerous minor salvaging organizations had been operating in the SR-651 system for centuries. One practice was for rogue traders to establish teams of workers aboard some kind of temporary station until their masters retrieved them, or the very real possibility that they would just be killed by an exhaustive list of possible hazards, not limited to asteroids, pirates, Xenos, or just classic human error. Damn, don't remove that bulkhead. Psh. Rogue trader Holden could see this. One practice was for rogue traders to establish teams of workers aboard some kind of temporary station until their masters retrieved them, or the very real possibility that they would just be killed by an exhaustive list of possible hazards, not limited to asteroids, pirates, Xenos, or just classic human error. Damn, don't remove that bulkhead. Psh. Rogue trader Holden could see this graveyard for the potential it held, and instead of these minor operations that sought to only use very minimal salvages, minor additional income streams for rogue traders, he had a grander vision. The salvage team they came across were of course reappropriated by Holden and pressed into service at his behest, as is pretty much the norm for rogue traders. It's not locked down or actively defended, the chances of the original owner discovering what happened are very minimal. Holden's plan was to turn SR-651 into a massive shipbreaking yard. He speculated that the only reason this hadn't already happened was that nobody wealthy enough or willing to gamble on such a prospect had come along until now. His plan was to reap massive wealth after investing in the construction of breaking yards in this system. upon which huge teams of voidsmen would recycle derelict ships and sell off components and raw materials, presumably to other rogue traders, or of course Forge Worlds and the Mechanicus, or simply to hive worlds, nobilities which required materials and so forth. His rationale was that with the extremely high attrition rate of Imperial ships passing through the Moor, and in general within the Coronis Expanse, coupled with deals he had made with some fellow rogue traders to tow in any decent-looking abandoned ships to the yards for scrap fees, he would then be able to establish a ship-breaking empire. With a flotilla of ships, tens of thousands of pressed men to work as shipbreakers, and a handful of lucrative salvage contracts, Holden claimed the entire system as his own. This is something rogue traders may do as and when it is available to them. Once the headquarters were established on a planet-sized jumble of asteroids and planetary debris held together in one of the system's gravitational sinks, Holden would set out to begin building the Empire. Unfortunately, even from the outset, it was quickly clear that this was going to be a disaster. Upon arrival at SR-651, many of the flotilla's ships, piloted by captains unfamiliar with the treacherous system, were lost to collisions and asteroid impacts. Once the operations headquarters were established and the temporary hubs built, a brutal month-long warp storm swept through the system, disrupting asteroid orbits and sending shards of rock careening into ships at anchor. It was becoming clear why, until this point, no major operation had been established. And usually workers assigned to break vessels would do so in a very smaller cell of voidsmen, left again by those rogue traders as something of a gamble. The chaotic events meant that for Holden, many thousands of workers were lost, as well as the hubs that they had just established, along with the supplies. This meant that for the survivors, they were now immediately beset with supply shortages, hunger rations, and very deadly working conditions. This quickly led to riots by the voidsmen and constant work strikes. Of course, these were going to be brutally and quickly suppressed, but the operation was very fast disintegrating.
We will make our own destiny.
Top 5 Black Friday deals here at Harbor Freight. Number 1 is Icon 24 karat gold ratchet for only $49.99. Number 2 is Warrior reciprocating saw for only $19.99.
Quickly suppressed, but the operation was very fast disintegrating. Holden would attempt to hold things together as well as his investments so far, but once word was out among other ports in the system, his name was quickly spoken of with the delight in his downfall or rage at this incompetence by other rogue traders. Because often if a rogue trader is seen to fall from grace, others are going to pounce on the opportunity to secure their assets, their trading routes very quickly. And this was much the case for Holden and his wider household family, where sadly the majority of them would end up being sold into indentured servitude to account for his loans, his ships and contracts being appropriated. Finally, in the midst of this chaos, the crew of his own ship would mutiny and kill Holden and his officers. So now in command of a well-equipped void ship and possessing an intimate knowledge of the systems and these voidsmen aboard his ship picked up where the unfortunate Holden had left off. It was none other than the voidsmen that they had originally encountered in the fields of wreckage at that proto-breaking one Hargoth Agamar. Hargoth was no officer. He was a voidsman. He was a plain worker like all those who had survived. And so he made him a straightforward offer. Those who would stay and work would be provided shelter, food, and a cut of the profits. Those who wished to leave would be given a ship and sent on their way. So months of dangerous, intense, and painful labour followed. They attempted to salvage and secure the installation with what few supplies they had left. The makeshift temporary habitats were shored up and adapted, if not into permanent, at least livable conditions. It was a far smaller operation than Holden had planned, but at least it was workable. They began by towing up scraps around the system for salvage and building materials. Hargoth made deals with surrounding systems, trading valuable ship parts and raw materials for food and supplies. And to the surprise of Hargoth and his followers, contract ships for salvage breaking began to arrive. This became a steady process, and it turned out these were arrangements that had been made by Holden. His contacts were apparently entirely unaware of the change in the breaking yard ownership. So Hargoth and co. soon found themselves with a pretty stable salvage business. Tragically, but not unusually though, in the short time after, when things were going pretty well, Hargoth and many voidsmen were lost traversing the Moor. It's not uncommon, as it remains one of the most dangerous routes of passage within the Imperial Galaxy, and many who were left in the breaking yard then decided to strip the remaining ships of whatever they could of the highest value and disappear out of sight and record. Of the remaining minimal workers who were completely incapable of maintaining the vision of the operation, as Hargoth had been the one organising the ramshackle workforce, without him it quickly collapsed in short order. So why are the breaking yards such a harsh job for workers? Well, it's because of what came after. Instead of a well-organised ship-breaking operation with contracts and contacts to bring in ships and export valuable hardware and materials, the breaking yards in the aftermath of this collapse became little more than a hellish, void-based industrial prison. It now holds the poorest, the most desperate and condemned of people within the Coronis expanse. Within the cold, isolated, and extremely dangerous breaking yards, these individuals toil away for uncounted hours, wearing heavily worn, patched-up void suits, barely operational individuals here are regularly never seen again. But for those who live here, they work to breaking point as they blindly attempt to secure high-value assets by tearing ships apart piece by piece. Unlike elsewhere in the Imperium, operations staffed by the lost, the desperate, and the condemned carry an unpleasantly high mortality rate. Deaths are so common as to be trivial. Life is cheap, and over time everyone who works here steadily becomes sick as well from radiation poisoning and other unnamed extremely hazardous materials used in building void ships. What had been for Hargoth and the Void Team a place of hope and potential had collapsed into one of exploitation, suffering and despair. Within the breaking yards sits what was once to be the central hub of the operations, now known as the receiving yard. It is identified as a massive spindle-shaped space station 30 kilometers long. Incoming vessels are processed and inspected here before being sent into the breaking yards for salvage. The spindle contains the old administrative offices, along with the living quarters of the clerks, along with the yard foreman and other enforcers. Also, a bustling marketplace dominates the central decks of the station, where ship components from the breaking yards are sold to anyone with the funds to purchase them. Everything from Auspex array lenses to warp drives, yellow-filled generators can be had. The condition and reliability of those pieces of hardware are fire-aware. They don't come with a warranty or returns policy, that's for sure. Sometimes if a vessel was relatively undamaged but had been abandoned for some other reason, this can in fact lead to entire ship hulls becoming unavailable. These bare hulls are typically stripped of all primary hardware, including their engines and weapon systems. A decent condition hull, though, is of considerable value. They're not easily nor quickly fabricated by the Imperium, and such a find would be ideal for a rogue trader who wants a new vessel as a special project or a highly dangerous task for a stripped-down ship. The breaking yards themselves now appear as a loosely connected structure of massive chains of hundreds of kilometers of flexible, semi-rigid pressure corridors which connect the disparate pieces of the complex. Traversing them, though, is of course wildly dangerous, as at any time stray debris could theoretically damage them. Stationary sizable asteroids are also connected to the pathways, and rough collections of ramshackle hangars and workshops sit upon them, bashed together from hull plates and other random detritus. Leaky, unshielded pressure domes and temporary emergency habitats make up the living quarters for those workers lucky enough to have them. Even with their stagnant, poorly recycled atmospheres that run a high risk of depressurizing or imploding without warning, they're still said to be preferable to sleeping aboard one of the space hulks in a vac suit or in a makeshift hovel built from the scavenged cockpit of a gun cutter, as sadly many do. The entire place is full of wretched, hollow-eyed people and has the look and feel of a huge, dangerous slum. It's dominated by the hulking shapes of derelict void ships and is always lit by glaring floodlights and the glittering sparks of cutting torches. Whilst one might assume this facility would be subjected to constant raids by pirates and other undesirables, including potentially Xenos, it actually happens relatively infrequently, because for starters, the breaking yard itself is wildly dangerous to just navigate and emerge unscathed. Despite the workers' camps being little more than slums as well, the actual defensive capabilities of the yards is considerable. One of the benefits of stripping down Imperial ships is that they now have access to hundreds of dismounted macro batteries and lances, along with thousands of close defense turrets. And these have been steadily mounted in the facility and secured within orbiting rocks and asteroids. These are manned at all times by a rotation of trained gun crew and coordinated from a salvaged ship's bridge, improvised as a command and communication center. This allows the yards to defend themselves and the receiving yard at both short and long range. The yards also maintain a small ragged fleet of fast defense monitors and inter-system ships, not to mention there are usually some rogue traders hanging around who likely would be less than impressed to have their time wasted or ships damaged by some upstart pirates or orcs who have attempted unsurprisingly to raid the yards many times, always being repelled. For whatever reason though, ownership of the yards has consistently proven to be a folly for any who attempts to expand its operation. Many have tried over the years, but it always ends in disaster. Rogue traders who have attempted to build their own empire upon Holden's vision inevitably end up in a state of humiliation and financial collapse. The breaking yard facility of the Cronus Expanse seems destined to survive in a state of perpetual anarchy in the truest sense of the definition. The workers here exist with no laws or established rules, no official hierarchical leadership structure. It's true that periodically groups may spring up, rogue traders may attempt to seize power, claim the yards for themselves, or to do things differently. But whenever this happens, things inevitably tend to always slip back into a state whereby those who survive in the yard answer to only one source of power: themselves. Hive worlds remain one of the core planetary types for the Imperium of mankind. Throughout the galaxy exist planets which, over many thousands of years of human habitation, have steadily concentrated their habitation in one vast megacity known as a hive. These have been built upon and above existing structures for millennia, and often the absolute lowest levels may contain traces of the original colonists who arrived upon a world prior even to the Age of Strife. Yet for many hive worlds, the hive city remains near enough the only habitable place remaining on the planet. This is because many hive planets have suffered total ecological collapse long ago, and the surface of worlds now exists as a desert, irradiated wasteland, or just oceans of waste and contamination, making the very surface level atmosphere unbreathable. There are, though, those who exist out there among these ashen wastes, and for whom maintaining their existence is an unending misery, but for whom returning to the hive city is equally unappealing and dangerous. The surroundings of many hives are devoid of any natural life whatsoever, and this is because they suffer millennia of pollution and exploitation of resources, thus leaving them as little more than wastelands of polluted, sometimes irradiated ash, referred to often as, unsurprisingly, the Ashen Wastes. But human figures still exist here, either in micro-settlements or in and around the base external areas of the hive itself, perhaps salvaging scrap material or making repairs to pipelines and transport tubes. Many worlds can contain hidden rewards in the form of available scrap or even lost technology, and those who scout the wasteland may be lucky enough to venture upon a rich oxide vein or accumulation of valuable chemicals having leached from bedrock below. These pockets can be mined or collected for return and processing with the hive. But the nomadic tribes who stalk the Ashen Wastes are feared by many, often mistaken for any number of odd, bizarre characters, mutants, drudges, scabbies, and wasters. But nobody is really sure if they're merely outcasts from the hive city or if their origin is more ancient. They appear humanoid, but from wherever they originate, they clearly have diverged from the humans of the Imperium who dwell within hive cities. Their lives are brutally harsh, for life in the toxin ashen wastelands of hive worlds is not one any should wish for. Some planets have extremely thin atmospheres outside of a hive city itself, and many more are badly irradiated or otherwise saturated with chemical pollutants. Violent storms are a constant feature of life in those souls who remain in the wasteland.
will never defeat the Covenant. You have fulfilled your purpose. Well done, Worm.
The undead... The Covenant? I would... You're not one.
Oh, thank God. My friend, I don't know.
This one.
Come to prove your I'm in this. No one. We knew him. He drinks too.
This one's frozen. Is it someone you know? Guess who I am, and I might let him go. Keep walking. There couldn't possibly be traps. Look up, greedy squirrel. See something shiny? Don't break your neck. Astounding. You've accomplished the impossible, leaping small rocks. Leave that be. That's private. You'll make a lovely squirrel. So inquisitive. How rude! Digging through my things. What manners? What have you got, clever squirrel? Do you have a guess? Digging away, puffy little cheeks. What have you found? A spy, am I? But why? That's no fun. Here I am, or am I here? Guess wrong, and you're mine, my dear. No fair! Don't talk to me. I'm a shrub. Your soul is missing.
What happened? I saw a group of them exploring the cave. You don't have to tell me twice.
You're lucky I came at all. Where did you find him? Kind gift. We're going.
You should have seen it, Ron. That cave is incredible.
Don't call me Raleigh.
Where you...
Much appreciated.
cursed ship is the least... There. How... Grab some... That's the...
One weapon is never enough in this line of work.
Get lost! Quick, come inside. We've almost made it. Who are you? Please, don't hurt me. Guards! Intruder!
So, what did you find out? A covenant contract? I...
Can't be too careful when you're picking your enemies.
My husband no one.
don't know what...
What is it?
Everyone stay calm. We've done all this before. We must make sure everyone's accounted for. No one